Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream. Hello, Casey.
Hello, Dave.
How are you surviving the dream this week? Have you survived, or is this a hologram I see before me?
I am here, but my mind is in many different places.
Where have you scattered your mind? Where's it gone? Tell us about it.
I feel like multitasking is sometimes your friend, and sometimes every part of you is playing catch up. I'm doing this with you. I'm trying to write a pilot. Not trying. I am writing a pilot. Right. And I'm planning like a big trip. So it's all like good stuff. It's just that sometimes I'm trying to focus and, some other part of my brain is like, I don't want to do that right now. I want to do this thing and that thing, but don't forget this other thing. Are you doing all of them? Can you do them all at once? Also, I've had a lot of coffee. Can you tell?
I can't tell. Honestly, that's amazing.
I hide it so well.
And someone said to me the other day, he said, I need to get my house cleaned. I said, in that case, write a pilot and you will get a very clean house and no one will come around. You'll do it all yourself.
It's true. A deadline is the best way to get everything done, right? Absolutely. Procrastination is a part of the writing process.
I actually write that into my schedule. Like I actually have if
planned procrastination.
I like to write in shifts, right? And I think, okay, I'm going to give myself 4 hours, knowing that 2 hours of that is me avoiding it. And then I'll go, and then I've suddenly written it, and I go, oh, okay, great. Then I don't know what I want to do with my time. Once I've done it, I'm going, right, now you can do all the things you want to do messing around with, and I can't remember what they were. We obviously want to find out how other people survive their dreams. So we've spoken to some amazing people so far, and we've got an amazing person here today as well, who I'm going to introduce him. This guy has hung out with presidents. This guy he's seen the dark side of life. Maybe even darker than what you've seen, Casey, and what I've seen. But he's hung out with some appalling people and some amazing people. It's because he's a detective. We've got a real life detective here. It's Adam Richardson. Hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for being on. Wait, I want to know, who are the amazing people and who are the terrible people? Because I know you have two dreams. Am I about to skip ahead, Dave?
Well, no, you can say who's the good one out of Casey and Dave and who's the terrible one. You can start there, Adam. Right.
I mean, I wasn't going to make it personal, but okay.
Wow. What are your instincts as a detective telling you after 3 minutes?
Well, I know where the bodies are buried with you, Dave, so we're going to stick with Casey.
I like you already, Adam.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works, is it? Casey gets a pass because you don't know her as well. I can't believe it.
Come on, look at this face. It's the face of innocence. Trust me, audience. It is.
Yeah. No, well, thank God this is just an audio podcast, right? But Adam, tell us, was that the dream job that you did for 28 years?
It was. So, yes, I am retired as of this month. And
wow. And he's younger than me. He's younger than me and he's retired.
And I completely lucked into it. So as a little kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, I knew that becoming a cop was the thing I wanted to do. And definitely the detective thing was kind of the pinnacle of what I wanted to achieve. But never going into it was I'm going to retire, on my 50th birthday or anything like that. I just was pursuing that little kid dream of I want to be a policeman and just kind of lucked into the rest.
I love that. Were you like the kid with all your friends that when somebody like lost their toy, you're like, I'm on the case?
We played cops and robbers. I was never the robber. I was always the, I watched too many episodes of Chips and Miami Vice as a kid, and this is where it gets you.
Did you look back in your adult life and go, oh my word, I am doing exactly what I wanted to do when I was a kid? Because very few people do that, I think.
It was very intentional on my part. I did have that moment looking back. I'm almost ashamed to say how much Michael Mann's influence had on my life as far as all of the horrible, well, not horrible. They're great protagonists, but not very healthy protagonists. So Casey, you take Sonny Crockett and Vincent Hanna and ball them up.
So what Casey and me do is like make up shit for a living is it does influence people, Casey. We better be careful.
That is scary.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
absolutely does.
But so wait, I want to know, did your little kid dream, like, did it measure up to the real thing? How do they compare to each other?
Oh, beyond. I have been very, very fortunate in my career. And if as a little kid, I got to talk to a real police officer, a real police detective and say, I want to work homicides. I want to work undercover. I want to do Secret Service protection stuff. I want to fly in helicopters. That cop would look at me and go, OK, good luck, kid, because that's not the way the world actually works. But I was lucky enough to have assignments doing all of those things.
Wow.
I love when...
I was going to say, if you had a camera on him, it'd be like a rock star, wouldn't it? It'd be like, yeah, can you believe that? Yeah, everyone goes, that's not true. But you did all that. I mean...
Yeah, a lot of it before people had cameras on. So I had the chance to experience some pretty amazing stuff, for sure.
What do you think made the difference that made you able to do all the extra cool stuff and not just have like the basic version? No offense to people who do the basic version.
No, not at all. By far, and this is advice I give to anyone looking to get into law enforcement, especially to become a detective or to become a special agent for a federal agency, is to learn English, to be excellent at writing. Because, much like you guys, I spent most of my day writing, only I got overtime for it.
You definitely had a more stable income than we do as writers. So you mean it's all that like paperwork we hear people complaining about on TV after they've booked someone? And you can tell me that I sound like an idiot with how well versed I am in what you do.
That's perfect. No, that's exactly right. Everything that we do, if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. So every interview that I do, every surveillance that I do, it gets written down into a report. And anytime I want to go forth and arrest someone or go search a house or whatever it is, those require warrants. And those are just like reports. There are affidavits that we file with the court, and potentially, if things go wrong, they may end up in front of the Supreme Court. But understanding that your writing has the potential to reach the highest courts in the land, hopefully not, but there's that possibility. You definitely need to have your writing skills honed.
That is a very good point that I feel like most people don't bring up with detective work.
And what about acting skills? Because have you ever been undercover or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Not as prevalent a job as you would believe based on television shows, right? There are certainly agencies that do a lot of undercover work. When you work for a local agency like I did, we will do small things. We won't do these prolonged undercover investigations for years on end like a lot of the federal agencies will. But yes, there were times that definitely had to put on a little bit of street theater and be someone that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with. But and it's fun.
What any of those parts were? I'll call them parts.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the question is I'm allowed to swear on the podcast?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
So,
I'm just wondering if you can say anything like that. I don't want to put you like in harm's way.
Well, there are some cases that I worked that I definitely can't talk about because I was part of a federal task force. But there were some other stuff like buying drugs or as this is why I asked about the swearing, is doing vice stings where you're going undercover into massage parlors and appearing to be one of the unfuckables, as we call them, the mouth breathers with the sweatpants on that, for good reason need to go pay for their sexual services. So, going undercover is one of those. Which is probably not too far from the truth, right?
I was going to say insulting casting in all parts of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I'm on an audio-only podcast, right? Because I've got the perfect face for it.
So wait, do you volunteer for something like that? Or do they go through the precinct and they're like, hey, Adam, we have a job that's perfect just for you?
We've got your headshot.
Well, I was in the Vice unit, the Vice Intelligence Unit at the time. So that was one of my main assignments. But it is no one's going to force you to go into those kind of assignments, and they do factor in whether you're married or not. So the department that I worked for wanted to make sure that was not going to cause some sort of problems in a marriage. So I was single at the time, and so that was part of it.
So being single allowed you to go do the fun stuff. I'm guessing that like getting to play pretend is the fun stuff, but that might be me projecting because I find it fun.
It is. It was the Vice stuff where you're trying to solicit sex kind of cases. That was the real touchy one when it came to relationships. And oddly enough, that was actually some of the closest I came to getting injured on the job, where these girls definitely have not been to massage therapy school. And I nearly had one break my back from standing on it and not knowing what the heck she was doing. And so,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. So
that would be tough to explain to your wife.
Yeah. So I was not married at the time, so that worked out.
Yeah. Why am I in traction? Well, I went to this massage parlor and she wasn't really a massage. Oh my word.
So that's interesting. So when you get trained, so they clearly have no training for that. Like when you get trained, do they teach you any sort of like improv or acting skills or anything like that? Or are you just left to your own devices?
You're left to your own devices for the most part. You kind of either have a knack for it or you don't. And I definitely didn't feel like I necessarily had the best background for it. Judging by the fact that I'd wanted to be a cop since I was a little kid, I don't exactly come off as non-cop. But back then, I certainly did. I made an effort not to look the cop part for sure. Being mindful of that. The other thing is, in a large part of undercover work is, and this is the boring stuff, is the fact that you cannot entrap someone. So when you're eliciting or soliciting information, or you can't force, or you cannot implant the idea to commit the crime in their head. So I can't walk up to you, Casey, and say, "Hey, will you go buy me a bindle of cocaine?" And not that I would phrase it that way, right? But
like how much is a bindle? I've never heard that.
Do you possess any cocaine for sale? So, I can't implant the idea for you to then go and do that crime on my behalf and then arrest you for it. So that would be an example of entrapment. So understanding where the legal lines are drawn of what you can and can't do undercover is certainly a large part of that.
Do you create a character, or is that done for you? Do they say, this is your role, this is your character?
You definitely create your own persona. And the best advice that was given to me was be the person you would be if you weren't a cop. So that gives you a lot of room to work with, rather than trying to be somebody that is so foreign to you that you then trip up and you get nervous and you don't know your own backstory and those kinds of things.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else you would do or would have done if you had not been able to be a cop?
I have too many interests, I think. I mean, now that I'm retired. Yeah, exactly. Now that I'm retired. I mean, there's the travel, writing, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, definitely have lots of plans in the future, and probably would have pursued a path along those lines had I not gone into law enforcement. But I just cannot imagine life had I not pursued my dream.
That's beautiful. So I know you also advise writers on like getting all these things are saying accurate because people are being influenced by what we portray. How close do we get it? And does that measure up as one of the dreams? Like, is it better having been an active detective or a retired detective that gets to tell cool stories?
Being retired is pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie about that. I really do enjoy helping writers. So it's screenwriters as well as novelists. The kind of anything that I find worthwhile is one that has kind of a North Star to it, a reason for pursuing this. And so this goes beyond just me trying to, not yell at the TV screen when I see some actor doing a portrayal that is, a little too unrealistic. And it's really more about, I think back to me being influenced to go into this career by television shows, by books, by movies. And the more that we are able to accurately portray it and inspire this next generation that clearly does not want to go into law enforcement, right?
It's not a popular thing to do right now.
No, and for good reason, right? And so perpetuating the idea that good can triumph over evil and that people are out there, pursuing a noble cause for a career, I think is really powerful, and it's not seen enough. And the only place it's being seen is in fiction, whether that's on the screen or in a book.
Yeah.
So can we just pick up on that? So has law enforcement changed a lot then in the last few years? Or
Wait, before I want to ask a question on topic before we do that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I want to know what do we get wrong most? Like, what are we seeing on TV that every time you're like, oh my God, why they're so far off?
A lot of it is done with the best of intentions for storytelling. Story comes first. That's what I talk, or that's what I say to the writers that I help, right?
Yeah.
If we make it realistic, super realistic, nobody's going to stick around, right? We need to follow that act structure and, time and all of those things. Nobody
wants to watch someone do paperwork for an hour.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the way that investigations really unfold, a lot of times do not have that same kind of dramatic tension, or that tension happens early on, what would be act one. And now the rest of it is more a matter of kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and not nearly as exciting as it would be if things were kind of drawn out. Now, a lot of cases do kind of play out in a dramatic way that would be very much along the lines of a 3-act structure. But those are kind of few and far between.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'll go into my question. I'll repeat it because I want to know if law enforcement has changed, or is it the image of law enforcement has changed?
I think it's a little of both. I think we in law enforcement are horrible. We need work when it comes to the PR thing, right? Statistically speaking, the worst that we see happen is a minuscule amount. And now, obviously, it is absolutely unacceptable, the stuff that we've seen reach national news over the last decade, for sure. But it is not at even remotely the scale of reality of, it's a perception versus reality thing. But it's hard to convey that message of, we're not a bunch of racist, murdering people as a career, right? Even though it is a fraction of a percentile that, come to light. And it's horrifying to me to see that stuff. And all we can do is try to be better and try to highlight the wins, but that's not what gets ratings for television or scoops or goes viral.
Right. Do you find yourself trying to put that kind of positive PR when you're encouraging writers, like helpful things you could also consider putting in, or are you not that heavy handed?
I try to just answer their questions. I try not to influence their story. It's not my story to tell in the first place. The one trend that I do find annoying, I'll put it as, is having the antagonist also be a cop. All of the big writers are doing that currently, not to ruin any books that are out there.
Spoiler!
Yeah, exactly. I won't say which authors or which stories, right? But that is way more prevalent now than it used to be. No one's a bad guy except for the cops in a lot of the popular fiction now.
So let's talk about the good things about being a cop, and what's something that you've been really proud of throughout your career?
Oh, man. Solving murders, obviously, is a pretty big highlight. Putting sexual predators away. I talked about wanting to be a cop since I was a little kid, but there was also an incident in high school where a very close friend of mine, she was a 14-year-old girl, was brutally raped. And I felt, as her friend, absolutely powerless. And the police department where we lived did an incredible job of putting a case together and sending this guy away to prison. And that was where, rather than just being the little kid, I want to be a policeman, it was like, I want to be a detective. I want to do that. I want to make a difference and really be a voice for the survivors of sexual assault. When I found myself in that role, finally, that, when you talk about surviving the dream, that was absolutely heart-wrenching. And that was how I ended up leaving a major crimes unit where I did that along with robbery and homicide investigations, and almost feeling emotionally full to the point that I no longer enjoyed work because I could not give enough, and it was sucking the life out of me. And so then I had to go, I shaved my head, grew out a goatee, started working undercover, doing drug investigations because it was not emotionally draining. It was playing cops and robbers again, like I'm a little kid, and not having my soul just sucked dry because I'm experiencing not even a fraction of what the survivors of the crimes that I'm dealing with, but trying to be their advocate and trying to bring justice to them was just absolutely heart-wrenching. And I did it as long as I could. But at that point, it was like, at some point you need to put yourself first and figure out how you're going to survive.
Yeah. Did you find, like, what were the resources that you found that helped you, like, not take it all on personally?
Getting out. I hate to say that the military leads the way when it comes to mental health stuff. So I've certainly done things since then. I have a very unmasculine, not so manly way of dealing with it, but I think is incredibly helpful. And that is to actually bury my head in a towel and just cry. Not because something was so horrific, but just like I'm emotionally full and I need that catharsis. And I learned that pretty early on in my career. And, may happen once a year, every year and a half, or every 3 months. It depends on what's gone on. But that was kind of the start of figuring out healthy ways to deal with that kind of post-traumatic stress.
I think that's great that you found that. I mean, yeah, you need that release. Like, I can't even imagine, like, the human toll it takes on you. I dated a criminal defense attorney for a while, and, like, here I am writing, like, make-believe fluffy cartoons, and then he tells me about his day with, like, murderers and fraudsters, and I'm like, how do you spend all day in that headspace and then, like, enter the rest of the world where the rest of us are not doing that and, like, still interact in that space? Like, do you feel like it's altered, I guess, how you see the world and how you move about in the world? Or have you had enough distance? Or
that's a great question. I think the key thing is to remember that the percentage of the population you're dealing with on a regular basis is not indicative of society as a whole. And more importantly, you can't have your entire social circle just be cops. You need to invite other people into your life, have normal relationships, if that means I rely upon Dave to be one of my
I was going to say, if Dave is normal, friends, you're in trouble, Adam.
It's always important to have a comedian in your social circle.
Absolutely.
One should be funny, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So just maintaining some sort of normal life balance and not having everything be about your career is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sounds like that's good advice for everybody. Like, you need some sense of, like, grounding to pull you out of, like, whatever that I know for us, Dave, right? Like, when you only have industry friends, every single conversation you have is like, what are you doing? What are you working on? Yeah. How are you proving yourself? What are you doing next? And then, like, you make a civilian friend and they're like, how are you? And I'm like, oh, you mean, like, as a human being in life? What a refreshing question.
Yeah. I always remember the player. I love that line where Tim Robbins sits down for lunch and said, come through me for once, not talk about the industry. And then they all go silent. And then they give up and go, yeah, have you heard what's going on at Paramount? Yeah, you just can't do it. And I think that is a thing. And I'm aware that I can be a bit like that we are, because it's what we love to do and it's what we love to talk about and it's kind of fun. And I think you're right, though. You do have to have moments where you go, actually, I'm going to do something completely different. I mean, I'm really into sport as well. So I like watching, as you like to call it, soccer over here. We call it football in the rest of the world.
It's all sports ball to some of us.
But I find that that's more of an escape to me than a movie. Because when I'm watching a movie or a TV show, I'm going, I can see, I wonder how long it takes to shoot that. It's like they've got 14 angles there and that's probably, or try and say, yeah, that they probably shot that late at night. That actor's looking a bit tired.
But that makes me wonder, can you still watch, like, the cop shows and kind of stuff that little you grew up watching, or do you watch it with a different critical eye now?
The critical eye is my wife elbowing me anytime I make a comment. So I try not to. It is very conscious on my part to try to just sit and enjoy.
It's still in your head, though, no? Or have you been able to tune that out?
It depends. It depends on how serious the show's trying to be. I'm certainly not thinking that if I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right. But if I'm watching... if I'm watching a serious crime drama or something, sometimes you're just like, oh, no. This is such a big plot hole. It's going to skew the entire story.
Is there an example of a show that you go, oh, actually, that is pretty much what it's like?
The Wire. by far is my favorite of all time.
Love The Wire. Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite TV. I'd say that's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Actually, The Wire. And now
I actually watched season 1 of The Wire in a wire room, listening to a Homicide Wire. So like art imitating life, imitating art. It's kind of a surreal moment.
We should have said he's a meta cop. Yeah.
That's like high praise for them, though. I would imagine, like, while you're in it, you're like, oh my God, I'm watching my real life play out. Yeah. That's cool to know. Yeah, that it could imitate it like that.
And Bosch is another show that's done a great job. A lot of cop shows will start with a good 1 or 2 seasons, and then later on, it just turns into a shootout every episode, and something happens that's kind of, you can tell the original writing team isn't part of it anymore.
Interesting.
Oh, you can notice that too, huh?
Have you ever been in situations where you felt your own life in danger?
Yeah, many times. Not to the point where I thought I was not
at home
in
with
control.
Your wife, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there certainly have been times like that, but we are incredibly well trained, and I was never at a point where I felt panic or felt that I was not in control of at least how I would respond to a situation. May not have been in control of the situation itself, but certainly felt empowered to defend myself or whatever it was. And no, I've never been involved in a shooting or any other kind of crazy stuff, but been fortunate in that way.
It must have to have incredible, it's just like improv this, I suppose, but you must have incredible trust in the people around you who are on your side. I say it's just like improv, right?
Yeah, only if we die, it's just our inner soul that dies and not our physical being.
I don't know, Casey. I think that's bad enough. Yeah, no, I mean, but you tell us, Adam. I mean, do you? And there must. Am I right in thinking that?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you definitely do. And you'll know who of your coworkers, who you have more of an implicit trust with, or I shouldn't say that. Everybody, you're trusting everyone that you're working with your life, but you will find partners that you interact with more intuitively, where I've had partners where if I'm making an approach on a car stop or whatever it is, I know exactly where they're going and what they're doing. We don't have to exchange any words, where I may have other partners that I don't necessarily know very well or have quite the same level of trust in their officer safety skills, where I'm kind of like, okay, watching to see what they do, or literally having to tell them what I need them to do or what I expect them to do. It's no different than any other workspace of having coworkers where you can just say, go forth and conquer and go do this thing, and you trust that they're going to get it done, or that you trust that they're going to hold up their end. And then there's others that need some hand holding and just kind of like, okay, maybe that's not the one I need to rely solely upon. I might need someone else to come help as well.
Do you feel that sticks with you, like when you're out in the world? Or like, I would imagine that's a thing that would be hard to turn off, of like the safety level of like scanning for exits, or like, we all have a sense of who people are, but you probably are like, I got your height, I got your weight, I got your eye color, and you're doing some shifty thing that I know from the past. Is again, now I'm just referencing cop shows I've seen of when you got to give a description for someone doing something wrong.
Right. You want to be part of Adam's Angels. Yeah.
This week, Angels.
Exactly.
So hypervigilance is definitely a real thing amongst cops and first responders in general. It is also symptomatic of post-traumatic stress. So because it is a survival thing, when I am observing a room, I'm not necessarily taking the height and weight. The thing I will focus on are their hands, because hands are what will kill you, and their eyes, because the eyes are the windows to the soul. So I can tell if someone's high by looking in their eyes and the way that their posture is, and after 28 years, we pick up on behaviors, subtle behaviors that may give us that feeling on the back of our neck that something isn't right. And we have, or at least I have, and I think a lot of the cops that I've worked with have learned to listen to that feeling.
Thank you. You just gave me some good dating tips in there too. Look at the eyes and the hands.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, so great reading recommendation for you is The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. He talks about how anytime our lives are in danger, the body tells us, right? If I have not had enough to eat, I get hungry. If I haven't had enough to drink, I get thirsty. If I haven't had enough sleep, I get fatigued. if I feel fear, we're the only animals that teach ourselves not to feel fear. And we are like, oh, you're afraid of public speaking. So, just go ahead and do it anyway. Well, yeah, nowadays that's totally fine. But when you're walking into a convenience store and all of a sudden you get this weird feeling and you don't know why, you're like, that's weird. And you go into the store anyway. Subconsciously, you picked up on a pattern that is, your subconscious mind is saying it is not safe. And you need to learn to listen to that, especially when you're dating or going and getting your groceries. So yeah, I highly recommend the book and listening to your instinct and trusting yourself when it tells you that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good tip. The gift of fear.
Gift of fear, top tip. I've got a question for you, Adam, because we interviewed an athlete recently, and you're the second person that we've interviewed who has recently retired. He described, and I might have put the words in his mouth because another athlete said this, that once you retire as an athlete, you suffer two deaths, the day you retire and the day you die. What's it like to retire as a cop?
Amazing.
So really, kids, be a cop, not an athlete. You only get one death.
Well, I think really what the other guest was speaking to is the sense of loss of identity, right? Mm-hmm. And how much you really self-identify with what you do being who you are. And certainly as a cop, right? It's not, oh, Adam had this job, right? He would show up, 8 o'clock in the morning and clock out at 6 o'clock at night. It's like, what do you do? It's not, I am it is, I am a cop. It's not, oh, he works as a cop, right? It is so ingrained in who you are. But it is also, well, I guess I should back up. I am in literally the honeymoon vacation stage of my retirement. I haven't even been retired 2 weeks yet. So I recognize that this is like life is grand kind of phase. There's a great TED talk that talks about the phases of retirement. And so it really goes back to finding a sense of purpose. So if you don't reach the point where you find some other North Star to live by, you are going to have that feeling of it's another death, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've reached that pinnacle, that self-actualization phase, and now it feels like you're getting knocked back down a few rungs, like something's missing because you've lost that career, you're going to feel that way until you get back up to that self-actualization phase. So I think being intentional, having a plan for retirement is key. And a lot of times, especially with athletes, when your career is taken away from you before you're ready, I think that is a huge difference. If I had my knee blow out and I lost my career, he's either an athlete or a cop, I think I would have a much different take on retirement than I do where I got to decide, I got to have all my ducks in a row. I got to say goodbye the way I wanted to, and I have a plan for the next stage.
What is your plan?
Oh, we are traveling like there's no tomorrow. We're leaving in a week from today and not coming back until January of 25.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
amazing.
We're starting in Hawaii and then going to Japan and all through Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand. And also tackling, putting my toe in the water, I should say, of doing some fiction writing. Not the crazy Hollywood screenwriting stuff that you guys do. I might license my IP, but no, I'll stick to the novels.
Is that the next dream? Is becoming a novelist?
I think so, and more for me rather than some sort of perceived outcome. I think when we're talking about having a dream and surviving it and enjoying your dream, I think the key thing is not to be so hung up on the outcome. You have to enjoy the process. If you don't enjoy doing what you do and you're only focused on the end of the road, you're going to be miserable the entire time. And then when you get to this perceived goal, it's not going to feel like it's enough. When you win the gold medal at the Olympics, if you hated running the entire time, you're going to be like, oh, is that it? Right. So same thing with my career, right? It was if all I wanted to do was survive and come out the other side, and being like, well, that kind of was anticlimactic. So you have to enjoy the work that you do. I
would agree. You sound very level-headed.
I know.
You are so not an entertainment person. It is beautiful.
I was going to say we're used to hanging out with people who are going, "Oh my God."
Well, I'm like,
I'm
That's
well
the kind of
caffeinated.
mind I want behind. Like, if you have a gun in your hand, I'm like, yeah, I totally trust that you're going to use all the like good deductive reasoning and whatnot before you maybe have to use it. I feel at peace with you,
I
keeping our
appreciate that.
safety, together. Dave holding a gun and being in charge of our safety. Oof, I don't know.
Yeah, give me a bow and arrow. I wouldn't know what to do with a bow, and even a bow and arrow. I wouldn't want to
I
hurt
would love
anybody.
to see you with a bow and arrow to defend.
Then I'll start like, going, oh, just leave me alone. I'll start wafting it around. Yeah. I'll tell jokes. I'll disarm them with jokes, Casey. You'll be fine. Laughter is a great defense I've found throughout my life. So,
I would agree.
I mean, this has been amazing, actually, because you are incredibly level-headed, and we've been talking to some great people. What is amazing about this process of we're interviewing people who have got dream jobs, and that may not necessarily, and they're all very, very different jobs, is that there seems to be this similarity that people have about enjoying the process. That's what I'm learning the most
Yeah.
of it. You've got to enjoy the journey, and it's not about the final destination.
And also, once you don't enjoy it anymore, that means it's time to let that one go and pivot to something else. And that probably we don't have just one dream in life. I don't think anyone we've talked to has been like, I wanted to do this one thing. It was exactly what I thought it would be. I had no other expectations. It was amazing and nothing changed. Like, that seems like, sure, when you are like a 5-year-old kid and you're a wide-eyed whatever, or if you're an idealistic writer, maybe you do still think like that, but that's not how it goes. And it's cool to hear how there's like overlap in all of the different facets of life that people can be drawn to.
Did your approach to your career, did it change because you were talking about being single, and they would say, oh, you're single, you can do this. Did it change once you entered into the relationship and you were married?
It did, in the sense that I had actually moved into the air support unit. So I was flying around in helicopters. I was no longer jetting off for 2 weeks on a surveillance out of town, right? Picking up the phone and being like, oh yeah, I'm in Vegas. Like, I have dinner waiting for you, that was kind of tough. And I think, I jokingly said that about the Michael Mann characters, but there is some truth to, the Sonny Crockett's of the world, right? Where that is a pretty unhinged lifestyle that is not very fair to ask a partner to be along for, when they're sitting at home being like, the kids need to be fed, and, there's laundry piling up and you're not doing your share. So I knew going in, I should back up. I did not get engaged until my 40th birthday. So all of those 30s, my years of my 30s were spent, doing all the crazy stuff that I don't think I would have felt comfortable expecting a partner, a long-term partner, to be along the ride for. It's one of the reasons why I don't have kids, because I knew it would be so selfish for me to have kids and then expect someone else to raise them, because I'm still being selfish about my career and going out and doing this stuff. So a lot of this really had to do with designing my life in a way for it to obviously work out in the way that I wanted, but also not have it impact others negatively, or at least as little as possible.
So when you decided you wanted to be a cop, like, did you know going into it, like, I'm going to have to learn this, that, whatever? Like, what did it take to get where you were?
Looking back, knowing at the age that I did as a kid in high school, it certainly affected the way I looked at high school, right? I was working 6 days a week, but I was not, I didn't drink. I didn't go to parties, largely because I knew that if I got caught drinking, not because I didn't want to have a beer, but because I knew it would affect my chances of getting into law enforcement. And because I was pretty level-headed and,
out of the womb?
No, I don't know. But I mean, like, at 21, I was able to start a career in law enforcement, where a lot of other people are probably deemed a little too immature to be given a badge and gun and allowed to go forth and conquer. So, having earned that trust, I think, was huge for sure. I'm trying to remember where we were going with that whole topic.
I was just wondering if you like what it took to get there. Were you like, okay, I'm going to learn to fly. I'm going to take gun training. Or you just are like, I know I want to be a cop. I take the test. I sign up. Like, what's the A to B?
Yes. So it was they will train you for everything they expect you to do for the most part. So just getting through the training, the police academy is like Groundhog Day. You're just going through the motions. Every single day is the same. You're getting yelled at. You're doing running and push-ups and book work and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really a matter of recognizing it as a game. It's something you got to get through, and it's stuff you need to learn. And just kind of trusting the process. Not that you enjoy the process at that point. It's designed to weed out the people that shouldn't be there for sure.
It's funny you said seeing it as a game. When you're being shouted at and being screamed at, and you're being, I mean, I don't know, we've seen the film, so you're doing 100 push-ups.
Yeah, the boot camp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How did you cope with that mentally? What was making you thinking, I'll do it?
Well, the reason that they do that is, beyond the physical fitness, the yelling and stuff, is stress inoculation. Because a lot of people have never been put in the stress. Now, the yelling comes from you failing to perform at something. Excuse me. Comes from you failing to perform at something. So you mess up in whatever it is, reciting the penal code section for whatever crime or some sort of testing thing. And if your reaction is to lock up, to stop thinking, to cry, all of the normal emotional things, this is the beginning of you being inoculated to that kind of stress. Because if you're now having a confrontation with a gangster on the street at 2:00 in the morning and your backup's 5 minutes away, you can't sit there and cry because somebody's talking to you not so nicely. Right. And they're not listening to you.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because in my head, I'm like, you can if it's a comedy.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. 100%. You may not survive the incident, but, you'll go down laughing. So that's really the purpose of that. And so recognizing that you are demonstrating the control of your emotions. And that honestly is a huge part of professionalism in law enforcement, is not having the human reaction to a lot of things. And that can be the negative stuff as well. It's like, I really want to sock this guy in the mouth for being a pedophile or whatever it is, or because he just hit me. Right. But being able to control your emotions and not have that emotional response like you really, really want to, that right there is the definition of professionalism when it comes to law enforcement. When we see these cops acting out and doing these things that are downright criminal, it's because they're not keeping their emotions in check.
Well, this podcast is flying by. We've got to move to questions, Casey, because we're learning so much.
Okay, so wait, I have two that can connect. You know, I'm going to ask my favorite question, but I think I can connect it. Is there, in order to, maintain the emotional balance and probably some stability in life in general, is there any sort of food and exercise regimen that you find that you have to stick to? And is there a favorite snack? That's my favorite question. That is your go-to in either good times or tough times. I don't know why it is, but it is, Dave. You can laugh all you want.
I'm going to say coffee and donuts, right? A good maple bar with bacon. Yeah. That's why we don't have the physique that we should, right? We're not built like firefighters to get paid to work out. Stress eating, eating at all hours, hitting the drive-through. No, it's absolutely horrible for us.
Do you really sit and chow down on a stakeout? Is that a real thing?
You're going to have to eat sometime. But it's not that you're chowing down on a stakeout as much as it is, if you're sitting in a car for 12 hours a day and you're following someone, you're lucky if you get to run into a gas station and get a bag of chips or hit a drive-through or something like that.
That was and that's 12 hours you're sitting down in the car.
Oh yeah,
it's just sitting and staring at the computer being a writer. Only the scenery never changes.
Need a toilet in the back of the car. I couldn't last that long.
Good point.
Well, that's another podcast for another day, right?
Yeah, what do cops do for 12 hours? Oh God. I'm crossing my legs just thinking about that. As you said that, I was like, wow.
Iron bladders. That's the key.
Oh my word.
That's part of your other training.
God, I need that training. I need that training now. Something that can get me through 40 minutes without having to go would be amazing. I want to know, Adam, what if you won the lottery this week, right? And we're talking like mega millions. Don't worry about the tax. You've got so much money, because people keep saying, what's the tax? What would you do?
Oh, well, talk about the dream, right? Surviving the dream. I don't know that I would really change anything. We're booked to go travel.
You're the poster child for living the dream.
Yeah. Well, it is living with intention is really what it comes down to. So being able to use that money to, help the causes that we think are worthy. One of the places that we're going on our trip is Borneo. So we're going to go up the river and see, the orangutans and pygmy elephants and all that kind of stuff. So conservation efforts certainly would be a key thing. All sorts. There's so many people and so many causes that are really worthwhile that, I don't see myself going out and buying myself a Lamborghini. I might get season tickets for Formula One, but really
for that. I'll come with you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just like a delightful human being.
I hope
what
so.
Is,
experiences more than things, I guess.
So if we really knew you, what would we know about you?
Oh, that I'm a softie at heart, that I am way more sensitive than I let on. And the career has certainly been the thing that gave me the hard candy shell.
Okay, I've got a very important question for you here. What's your favorite animal and why?
German Shepherd. Because I had one that I absolutely loved. It was my best friend. And, just seeing a German Shepherd makes my day. I saw 2 this morning. I had a grin on my face.
What was the dog's name?
I didn't get a chance. It was across the street.
No, your dog.
There were 2 of them. Oh, mine. Mine was Bosco.
Bosco, like the chocolate sauce?
Yeah, exactly. Like the
nice.
Seinfeld episode.
Shout out to Bosco.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, we love our fur children. I feel like I've learned so much, and I aspire to be as well adjusted as you are in life. Maybe I need to retire to get to that point. I don't know.
Maybe that's it. Maybe the problem is with creators, we never retire, do we? So,
you drain the creative well and then expect to have it refill.
Yeah, we just keep dreaming. Well, Adam, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being so generous.
Thank you so much.
Sharing your survival stories. You really have survived the dream, and you deserve your retirement. So please enjoy it.
Agreed. Thank you for all your efforts up till now, and thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior, and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.